Greetings. Our Frederick Little here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 2640, and our subject today is Iran. Most of you have probably been pretty much aware of what's going on. Excuse me. Uh, so I've got kind of prepared this in advance, but then I looked at the news today, and I'm going to add a few notes to my overall episode. So that's what I'm going to do first. So let's get started on that. This is an article here by the Associated Press. In case you don't remember, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the Associated Press. They mix opinion with news and make their opinions sound like facts. And so I screen it a lot. I thought this one thing was kind of interesting, and I thought I'd bring it up. In the article, they say the strikes represented a startling show of military might for an American president who swept into office on America First platform and pledged to keep out of forever wars. Now, the implication is this is a forever war. Well, the war that's forever is the one going on between the Arabs and Israel. That's a forever war that only the Lord Jesus Christ himself will settle permanently. There might be in times of peace, and I think that that's going to happen, or as already was happening up until this. But this is part of that whole scenario there. You got to view the whole thing back off and look at the whole picture. And so Iran is it's a pest. Worse than a pest, it's a deadly pest, because when they do things that they are with murderous intent. And for 47 years, Khomeini and his associates have pretty much run unchecked. We've tried to stop them here and there. It's like moving chess pieces around to try to block, but eventually they can hop over or go around or whatever. And so he has pretty much gotten his way. So they are forgetting something that precedes my birth. I'm almost 83 years old, and there's a process here that is still true, and it existed before I was born, and it's called peace through strength. Strength is perceived by others when you actually exercise it at least once. And that can take place in the family. When I was a child, my parents had a razor strap hanging over the kitchen chair. Now, before you think that's abuse, I don't remember it ever being used, but it was there. They may have used it, but they didn't use it in anger. They didn't use it in a way that injured me or anything of that nature, if they did use it. Psychologically, though, it really reinforced in me a fear of bringing that on, which meant that I had to watch my step, be obedient, do the things I'm supposed to do, and don't get in their face, like a lot of young people do today. But that's part of human nature, part of the human story. But peace through strength, and that's kind of struck me out. I wrote that down, in fact. And here's another thing: is Iran's response to this whole thing was to attack everybody. Well, that's kind of backfiring on them. In here, in the article, it says Europe has mostly stayed out of the war and pressed for diplomacy, but in an indication that the conflict could draw in other nations, Britain, France, and Germany said Sunday they were ready to work with the U.S. to help stop Iran's attacks. So Iran has had this multifaceted plan of attack even before the United States struck them. They were using I think I pronounced this right, the Houthis, Hamas, and other terrorist groups They were funding them. They literally directed them, controlled them. And they're sort of like an outreach of their own military outreach, if you will, into the world. And so they have these organizations have borne the brunt of the responsibility to do what they want to do, which is to kill people. But they've also had to bear the responsibility of their impact, rather, of retaliation. And Iran has just sat back and watched. Well, now it's brought home to them. Now they've lost their leader. And that is much bigger than if we lose President Trump, for instance, that would be a tragedy. That would be a devastating loss, but we would recover. Excuse me. We have a system of government that is bigger than any one man or a group of men and women. If you just kill our leaders, we'll replace them. And the government will go on. It may have to go in hiding, whatever, but it will go on. We have a very strong and resilient government. Iran's strength was rested in Khomeini. He ran the place for 47 years. And it wasn't wise to go against him. Look what happened last January. Thousands of people who were in the streets protesting the regime's terror on its own citizenship. And they were roughly, cruelly stamped down. Many people died. Some were sent into prison and things of this nature. It was just a terrific, a horrific response. And we have now a president who he saw that and he didn't want anything to do with that. One more thing I'll take out of the paper before I continue on. It says here, 3 close allies of the United States said Sunday they are ready to join forces to defend their interests in the Middle East and stop Iran's retaliatory missile and drone strikes following the killing of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khomeini. As others around the world raised concerns that the conflict sparked by coordinated U.S.-Israeli attacks could spread into a wider war. Britain, France, and Germany said they were prepared to work with the United States. Now, that's the extra news. Excuse me, that's the extra news. Let me get on to what I already had prepared. I'm sorry, my voice is was doing all right a moment ago. So the conflict escalated after months of failed diplomatic negotiations over Iran's nuclear program, which the U.S. and Israel view as a significant security threat. Iran's nuclear ambitions, long-range missile development, and support for proxy groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis have contributed to regional instability and direct threats to U.S. and allied forces in the Middle East. The U.S. and Israel launched coordinated strikes targeting Iran's nuclear facilities, military infrastructure, and leadership, citing the need to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. Recent military actions. On February 28, 2026, the U.S. and Israel initiated a joint operation with airstrikes and missile attacks across Tehran and other strategic locations. The strikes killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and several senior Iranian military and intelligence officials, including the defense ministry and commanders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Iran responded with missile and drone attacks targeting Israel, U.S. bases, and Gulf states, including Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE. As of March 1st, that's yesterday, 2026, 3 U.S. service members were killed and 5 wounded in the conflict, with additional casualties reported in the region. So here's my opinion. I am not surprised by the reactions of foreign leaders, and neither should you be. Some condemned the attack while others supported. it in various ways. Those who condemn it are generally liberals favoring appeasement, which they call diplomacy. History is littered with appeasement reactions of appeasement. We saw in the 20th century, it didn't work. It never does. It may have initial successes, but eventually it always fails. And it really serves as an invitation to your opponent, your foe, your enemy, or whoever, to eventually attack. So diplomacy that caves in to unwarranted demands is not diplomacy. The practitioners of this view are actually encouraging the terrorists. But the greater and more important issue is the people of Iran. They have been crying for intercession by America for years. Well, now they have it, plus they have the opportunity to bring down the regime. It still has the Army and Air Force units, plus the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. It has been reported that the U.S. Israeli forces are targeting not only the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, but the Revolutionary Guard. While I applaud President Trump for his action, it is 47 years too late. This should have been done back then, but because no one wanted to take the risk, hundreds of lives have been lost. Iran tries to make themselves the victims. These are the same people who brutally suppressed the Iranian people who protested last January. Finally, we have a leader willing to do the right thing. To those who cry that we are Christians and are supposed to love people, we do. But we hate what our Lord hates, namely the wanton murder of Jews and Americans. I think I get this in a minute. He proclaimed in Genesis 9:6 that whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. In Genesis 12, God made a promise to the Jewish people. And I read not too long ago somebody who said, well, we are the God's promise of blessing those who bless the Jews and cursing those who curse the Jews. The argument was, well, that's as long as they're doing right. If they're doing wrong, we're not to do that. And that is not correct. That promise to God had no conditions in it. It said, if you bless Israel, or if you want to call that a condition, you can. If you bless Israel, I will bless you. If you curse Israel, I will curse you. There was no condition about the Israeli morality. Most of the Jews in Israel are there. They're not even. They don't not even know what you call good Jews. They're in unbelief. But they're back in the country in unbelief. But God is not done with them, folks. God has a plan for the Jews. And someday they're going to turn to Christ and recognize him as their Messiah. And they will then, and at that time, Christ will install and to implement the Millennium Kingdom. So God is saying, look at, if you shed man's blood, that's murder, then your blood's going to be shed. And that's where the death penalty comes in, and that is where military comes in as well. God will not tolerate attacks upon his people, which is primarily the Jews. But because America is a friend to the Jews, God's protection kind of extends to us as well. We're not protected from any harm. He never promised that. But we are under that promise. If we bless the Jewish people, God will bless us. And we cannot sit here and say, well, they're out of they're not in right with God. They're doing things wrong. They're committing sins. They're committing acts of violence and so on and so forth. Those may all be true. and God will deal with it, and He may use us to help correct that matter. But as far as our support for them as a people and as a nation, we are to have our be in complete support of them. Otherwise, God might judge us, and it could be very much harsher than his judgment on the Jews. It's a good thing to keep in mind, folks. God didn't put that in his Bible just because with the idea that, well, as long as you are doing right. Well, they have a history of doing wrong. By the way, so do we. We don't do things right. God saved us when we put our trust in Jesus Christ. But every day we have to go to him in prayer. We still have our sin nature. We still have the ability and the proclivity to sin. And that's why he gave us 1 John 1:9. It's not for anybody else. It's just for Christians. So the thing is this, folks. This war, it's not really this is part of an overall war that's been going on. It's a new stage in it. And it may very well deliver the Iranian people from the suppressive government. It depends on them now. They have the opportunity. And I suspect that they will have they have a window of opportunity. And if they step forward and take it, I think the United States is going to be there for them. In the past, we couldn't say that. We would support them verbally, but not with action. Trump is willing to put the action there, to walk the talk, if you will. And so we'll have to just watch and see what happens. And you need to pray. Pray for Trump. Pray for his wisdom. So he knows when to attack and when to not. When to go forward, when to retreat. Pray for him. Ask God's protection. And also pray for the Jewish people. There's going to come a time, individually, some of them have gotten saved. But there's going to come a time when that nation is going to know that Jesus Christ is their Messiah. You and I won't be here. We'll be raptured before that happens. But the thing is, we need to be cognizant of Genesis chapter 12. And verses, I think it's the first 3 verses, 1, 2, and 3. And make that a part of our life. We may not always agree with them on what they say and what they do, but we are better be on the side of blessing rather than the side of cursing. Well, that's it for today. I always try to inform you, encourage you, and inspire you. And hopefully I've done at least one of those, if not all 3. And so we'll be watching this. This will probably come up again, another portion of this. In the meantime, don't forget that T&R Independent Books, a Christian indie publisher, provides this free to you. And remember this, I always try to keep my news separated from my opinion. News is something you need. My opinion is something you choose to listen to. You have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next episode.